Hello, everyone. Today, we embark on a journey into one of history's most compelling and tragic mysteries, the story of the Titanic. You may have heard its name, seen the famous movie, or read accounts in books. But I promise that after listening to this, you will feel as though you are encountering this epic tale for the very first time. We will delve into every intricate detail, and some revelations might truly astonish you. So settle in, relax, and let us plunge into the world of the Titanic. By the end, you will not only grasp the Titanic's profound narrative, but also enhance your command of English. The Titanic was far more than just a ship. It was a magnificent dream, a towering symbol of luxury, unparalleled success, and the zenith of human engineering. Let us transport ourselves back to the early 1900s, an era when colossal ocean liners were the primary means of traversing vast seas. At this time, two formidable shipping giants, White Star Line and Cunard Line, were locked in a fierce rivalry to construct the most opulent and advanced vessels imaginable. Cunard boasted its swift and celebrated ships, Lusitania and Mauretania. While speed was their hallmark, White Star Line yearned for something different, something grander. Their ambition transcended mere velocity. They craved ultimate luxury, supreme comfort, and monumental size. Thus, White Star Line conceived a trio of ships destined to be the largest and most lavish ever built: the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. Of these, the Titanic would achieve the most enduring fame, though tragically, not for the reasons its creators had envisioned. The Titanic was meticulously constructed in Belfast, Northern Ireland, by the renowned shipbuilders Harland and Wolff. Its monumental construction commenced in March 1909 and spanned nearly 3 arduous years. Thousands of dedicated workers toiled day and night, bringing this colossal vessel to life. It stretched an astonishing 882 feet, 269 meters in length, and stood 175 feet, 53 meters tall. A true floating city, almost equivalent to 3 football fields laid end to end. Now, let us address the audacious claim that earned the Titanic its legendary status, its supposed unsinkability. The ship was equipped with 16 watertight compartments, and its brilliant engineers confidently asserted that even if 4 of these compartments were breached and filled with water, the ship would miraculously remain afloat. This groundbreaking technology was so advanced for its time that the public genuinely believed the Titanic was impervious to sinking. Philip Franklin, the vice president of White Star Line, declared before the world with unshakable conviction that the Titanic was unsinkable. The media echoed this sentiment, solidifying its image as the ship that could never, ever sink. Step aboard the Titanic with me and witness what rendered it so extraordinarily luxurious. In that opulent era, a voyage on the Titanic was not merely a journey. It was an immersive experience. The ship's interiors were meticulously crafted to rival the most exquisite 5-star hotels. Indeed, many passengers proclaimed the Titanic to be superior to even the finest hotels on land. Hand-carved wood paneling adorned the walls, polished to a brilliant sheen, while stained glass windows shimmered with kaleidoscopic light. 2 magnificent grand staircases graced the ship, with the first-class grand staircase becoming an iconic masterpiece. It was embellished with intricate iron railings, gleaming gold accents, and crowned by a breathtaking glass dome above, a majestic nexus where affluent passengers gathered, showcasing their extravagant attire and dazzling jewels. Beyond its stunning rooms, the Titanic boasted facilities that were unheard of for ships of its era. There was a heated swimming pool, a tranquil Turkish bath for relaxation, and an electric bath, considered the pinnacle of modern luxury. For the active, a fully equipped gymnasium and a squash court awaited. Intellectuals could retreat to a well-stocked library, while 2 barbershops catered to grooming needs. Numerous restaurants, cafes, and smoking rooms provided ample opportunities for socializing. The De La Carte restaurant, in particular, was so exclusive that patrons had to pay an additional fee to dine there. First-class cabins were sumptuously adorned with silk curtains, elegant furnishings, and the finest bedding. Even the second-class cabins surpassed the first-class accommodations on many other vessels. Though simpler, the third-class cabins still offered greater comfort than most ships of that period. The Titanic's construction cost a staggering $7.5 million in 1912, a sum equivalent to approximately $200 million today. Tickets, too, reflected its exclusivity. A first-class ticket commanded $4,350, comparable to $100,000 in modern currency. Second-class tickets were priced at $60, about $1,500 today, and third-class tickets ranged from 15 to 40 as around 400 to 100,000 today. The Titanic was unequivocally a luxury liner, and its first-class passages were reserved for the elite. When the Titanic was finally completed, anticipation swept across the globe. It was the largest ship ever conceived. Celebrated actors, influential businessmen, and aristocratic families reserved their tickets months in advance. Everyone yearned to be part of the Titanic's maiden voyage, its inaugural journey from Southampton, England, to New York City, USA. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic gracefully set sail. Throngs of people gathered at the Southampton port, bidding farewell to loved ones and capturing photographs of the majestic ship as it slowly departed the dock. Aboard were 224 souls, passengers and crew. Among them were some of the world's wealthiest individuals, including John Jacob, Astor IV, Molly Brown, and Isidor Strauss, co-owner of Macy's department store, with his wife Ida. In stark contrast, immigrants in third class harbored dreams of a new life in America, for whom the Titanic symbolized hope and boundless opportunity. The Titanic's journey commenced without a hitch. The ship glided smoothly at a speed of 21.5 knots, about 40 kilometers per hour. Everything appeared perfect. Passengers reveled in the luxurious amenities, relaxed in their opulent cabins, and dined in exquisite restaurants. The weather was serene, and the sea stretched out placid and calm. Yet, a mere 2 days into the voyage, the Titanic received its first ominous ice warning, a message from another ship, alerting them to icebergs in the North Atlantic. While icebergs were not uncommon in that region, especially in April, no one harbored significant concern. After all, the Titanic was unsinkable, wasn't it? By April 14, 1912, the Titanic had been at sea for 4 idyllic days. The luxurious surroundings, the calm sea, and the clear weather painted a picture of perfection. But unbeknownst to all, this peaceful day was destined to culminate in a disaster that would forever scar the world's memory. Throughout that fateful April 14th, the Titanic received no fewer than 7 iceberg warnings from other vessels in the vicinity. These crucial messages were transmitted via Morse code, a system of dots and dashes. Each warning unmistakably alerted the Titanic's crew to the presence of large icebergs ahead in the treacherous North Atlantic. The handling of these warnings was deeply flawed. Some messages inexplicably failed to reach Captain Edward John Smith as they were not designated as urgent. Others were sent to the Marconi wireless operators, who, preoccupied with transmitting passenger messages, paid little heed to the warnings. Even those warnings that did reach Captain Smith were tragically underestimated. The captain, buoyed by the ship's advertised unsinkability, believed the Titanic was inherently safe. Despite the clear indicators of danger, he did not reduce the ship's speed. The Titanic pressed forward at its maximum velocity of 21.5 knots, approximately 40 kilometers per hour. The night of April 14th was eerily dark. The moon was obscured, and the stars offered only a faint glimmer. This profound darkness made it virtually impossible to discern anything in the vast distance. The sea itself was unusually calm, a condition that, paradoxically, proved detrimental. Normally, waves would crash against icebergs, making them easier to spot. But on that night, the water was so unnaturally smooth that the colossal icebergs became almost invisible, merging with the inky blackness. High above the ship's deck, in the crow's nest, 2 vigilant lookout men, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, strained their eyes. Their critical task was to watch for any hazards, particularly icebergs. Compounding their challenge, they lacked binoculars. The officer who possessed them had disembarked before the journey, forgetting to hand them over. Their perilous task became even more formidable. At precisely 11:39 p.m., everything irrevocably changed. Frederick Fleet, peering into the abyss from the crow's nest, sighted a dark, massive form directly ahead. Initially, he couldn't quite identify it. Then, as the Titanic hurtled closer, the horrifying truth dawned. It was an iceberg, immense beyond imagining. Fleet immediately rang the warning bell 3 times, the urgent signal for imminent danger. He then seized the phone and called the bridge, shouting "Iceberg, right ahead!" The officers on the bridge, including First Officer William Murdoch, reacted with lightning speed. Murdoch ordered the crew to turn the ship sharply to the left and reverse the engines to slow its momentum. But it was already too late. A mere 37 seconds after the iceberg was first sighted at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic violently collided with it. The iceberg was a monstrous entity 200 feet high and 400 feet long. Researchers estimate it was approximately 100,000 years old and weighed a staggering 1.5 million tons. The collision sent shards of ice cascading onto the Titanic's deck, but the true, catastrophic damage unfolded beneath the waterline. This leads us to one of the Titanic's greatest enigmas. How could a colossal piece of ice inflict such devastation upon a ship constructed of solid metal? To comprehend this, let us examine a few critical details. First, the iceberg's immense weight and strength. Icebergs are not soft like ice cubes. They are incredibly dense, massive, and solid, with razor-sharp edges capable of slicing through metal. The visible portion of the iceberg above water was merely a fraction of its total size. The vast majority lay hidden beneath the surface, rendering it extraordinarily heavy and powerful. Second, the Titanic steel. While the Titanic was indeed built of steel, the metallurgy of 1912 was not as advanced as it is today. This early steel became brittle in extremely cold temperatures, and the North Atlantic that night was freezing. When the iceberg struck, the steel plates tragically cracked rather than bending. Third, the rivets. The metal rivets that painstakingly held the Titanic's steel plates together presented another vulnerability. Some of these rivets were made of a weaker material called wrought iron. When the iceberg scraped along the ship's side, these inferior rivets popped out, creating gaping holes in the hull. As the iceberg gouged along the Titanic, it opened 6 narrow fissures below the waterline. Though individually small, water began to pour in at an alarming and unstoppable rate. When the collision occurred, most passengers remained blissfully unaware of the unfolding catastrophe. Some felt a slight jolt. Others heard a muffled grinding sound as the iceberg scraped the ship's side. In the first-class dining room, a few even joked, "What was that? Did we hit something?" In the engine room, however, the crew immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. Water was rushing into the lower decks with terrifying speed. The Titanic's vaunted watertight compartments, designed to ensure its safety, were overwhelmed. The iceberg had damaged more compartments than the ship's design could withstand. Scientists now believe the iceberg that struck the Titanic originated from a glacier in Greenland. Over millennia, it calved off and drifted into the North Atlantic, becoming one of the largest icebergs in the area by the time of the collision. Its sheer size and weight rendered it an unstoppable force. By midnight, water had already engulfed the first 5 compartments of the Titanic. This was a critical, fatal problem. The ship's design could manage flooding in 4 compartments, but not 5. Captain Smith was informed of the extent of the damage and, with dawning horror, realized the Titanic was in dire, terminal trouble. The ship, once proclaimed unsinkable, was now irrevocably sinking. Yet, most passengers remained oblivious to the impending doom. The orchestra in the first-class lounge continued to play, and conversations and laughter still filled the air. At a.m. on April 15, 1912, just 20 minutes after the Titanic's fatal encounter with the iceberg, the situation escalated dramatically. Captain Edward John Smith, who had exuded unwavering confidence in his ship's safety mere hours before, now faced an unimaginable truth: the Titanic was indeed sinking. At midnight, Captain Smith convened an emergency meeting with his senior officers. He issued clear, urgent orders: begin lowering the lifeboats, dispatch distress signals to any nearby ships, maintain calm among the passengers, and prevent panic at all costs. The Titanic was equipped with 20 lifeboats, a number woefully insufficient for the 224 souls on board. These lifeboats had a combined capacity for only about 178 people, meaning over 1,000 individuals faced no chance of survival. This glaring design flaw stemmed from a decision by the company to omit additional lifeboats, prioritizing a spacious and aesthetically pleasing deck. As the crew commenced lowering the lifeboats, the Titanic's wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, began transmitting distress signals using Morse code. They initially used the call sign CQD, meaning come quick, distress. Later, they also employed SOS, the newer, universally recognized international distress signal. One of these desperate signals was intercepted by the RMS Carpathia, a passenger ship approximately 58 miles, so 93 kilometers away. The Carpathia's Captain Arthur Rostron immediately ordered his crew to alter course and steam full speed toward the Titanic. The Carpathia could reach a maximum speed of 17 knots, but even at full throttle, it would take a harrowing 4 hours to reach the stricken liner. Meanwhile, other ships, such as the SS Californian, were much closer but failed to respond in time. The Californian's wireless operator had tragically retired for the night and did not hear the urgent distress calls. As the crew lowered the lifeboats, confusion and fear slowly permeated among the passengers. Most struggled to grasp the true gravity of the situation. The Titanic remained brightly lit, and the ship's band courageously continued to play cheerful music, striving to maintain a semblance of calm. In first class, some passengers hesitated to abandon their luxurious surroundings, believing the lifeboats were merely a precautionary measure. In third class, passengers endured a far more arduous ordeal. Many found themselves trapped in the lower decks, desperately trying to navigate their way to the lifeboats. Language barriers exacerbated their plight, as many third-class passengers were immigrants who did not speak English. By 12:30 a.m., the first lifeboat was gingerly lowered into the frigid Atlantic Ocean. It had a capacity for 65 people, yet only 28 passengers were on board. This became a distressing pattern throughout the night. Many lifeboats departed the Titanic half empty, either because passengers disbelieved the ship was sinking or believed they were safer remaining on the grand vessel. As water relentlessly poured into the Titanic, it became horrifyingly clear that the ship's watertight compartments were utterly insufficient to save it. These compartments were designed to contain water, but they only extended partway up the ship. Once the water reached the top of these compartments, it cascaded over into the next ones, sealing the ship's fate. By 1:30 a.m., the front of the Titanic, was fully submerged. The ship began to tilt dramatically forward, and raw panic finally erupted among the passengers. As the lifeboats filled and were lowered, the passengers faced another deadly threat: the icy water. The temperature of the North Atlantic that night was a brutal 2 degrees Celsius, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to induce hypothermia within minutes. Most passengers and crew who plunged into the water without a lifeboat succumbed rapidly. The Titanic carried 224 souls, but only 705 survived, most of them rescued from the lifeboats. At approximately 2:15 a.m., the Titanic situation reached its breaking point. Quite literally, the immense weight of the flooding water exerted unimaginable pressure, and the Titanic began to fracture. The bow was already submerged, dragging the ship downward, while the stern, the back of the ship, lifted high into the air. The colossal stress on the ship's middle section proved too much, and with a thunderous roar, the Titanic broke into two distinct pieces. The two halves of the ship sank separately. The bow plunged swiftly to the ocean floor, while the stern floated precariously for a few moments before also vanishing into the abyss. At 4:00 a.m., 2 agonizing hours after the Titanic disappeared beneath the waves, the RMS Carpathia finally arrived. Its crew immediately began the harrowing task of rescuing survivors from the lifeboats. The Carpathia's crew worked tirelessly, pulling individuals from the freezing water. Many survivors were in profound shock, weeping uncontrollably, or suffering from severe hypothermia. Some were too weak to climb aboard and had to be hoisted with ropes. By 8:30 a.m., all survivors had been rescued and the Carpathia set course for New York, leaving behind the wreckage of the Titanic and the bodies of more than 1,500 people who had perished. In the wake of the Titanic tragedy, the world demanded answers. How could such a magnificent and supposedly unsinkable ship meet such a fate? Why were so many lives lost? As investigations commenced, a shocking controversy emerged: the mysterious role of another ship, the SS Californian, which was a mere 37 kilometers, 20 miles away from the Titanic when it sank. The SS Californian, a British steamship, was navigating the North Atlantic on the night of April 14, 1912. The same night, the Titanic struck the iceberg. Unlike the Titanic, the Californian was not racing against time. It had halted for the night due to iceberg warnings and was surrounded by ice. Its engines were off, and it lay stationary in the cold, quiet ocean. At around 1100 p.m., the Californian's crew spotted a large ship in the distance, the Titanic. From their deck, they could clearly discern the lights of the enormous vessel. When the Titanic began to sink, its crew launched rocket flares into the sky as a desperate distress signal. These white flares were visible for miles and were unequivocally meant to alert nearby ships to a grave emergency. The Californian's crew saw these flares. Second Officer Herbert Stone reported to his captain, Stanley Lord, that he had seen the rockets. Stone also noted that the large ship appeared to be stopped. However, Captain Lord inexplicably dismissed the situation, assuming it was nothing serious. He believed the ship might be hosting a party or celebration, a common occurrence for vessels carrying wealthy passengers. One of the most catastrophic errors made by the Californian was turning off its radio wireless for the night. The wireless operator, Cyril Evans, had gone to bed at 11:30 p.m., shortly before the Titanic began transmitting its desperate distress signals. This decision proved fatal. If the Californian's radio had remained active, its crew would have heard the Titanic's SOS calls and could have responded immediately. The ship was close enough to reach the Titanic in time to rescue hundreds of passengers who later perished in the freezing water. The question reverberates: could the Californian have truly saved lives? The Californian was 20 miles away, a distance it could have covered in approximately 2 hours. While it might not have arrived before the Titanic completely sank, it could have rescued many people from the lifeboats and the frigid water. The Titanic sank at 20:20 a.m., and the Californian could have reached the site by 20:30 or 300 a.m., significantly earlier than the RMS Carpathia, which arrived at 400 a.m. Even saving 100 or 200 more lives would have drastically diminished the scale of the tragedy. The controversy surrounding the Californian led to profound and lasting changes in maritime practices. Ships were mandated to maintain 24/37 radio operators, ensuring no distress signals would ever go unheard. New, unambiguous guidelines were introduced for distress flares, making it unequivocally clear that rockets in the night sky always signify danger, never celebrations. Ships were also instructed to investigate any unusual activity, such as flares or nearby vessels appearing stationary. Captain Stanley Lord's reputation was irrevocably shattered by the inquiry. He spent the remainder of his life striving to clear his name, but the controversy haunted him until his death in 1962. The Titanic was not just a ship, it was a potent symbol of human ambition, unparalleled luxury, and the grandest of dreams. Yet, in one tragic night, all of that was mercilessly swallowed by the icy waters of the Atlantic. Even today, over a century later, the Titanic remains one of history's most endlessly fascinating stories. After the Titanic sank on April 15, 1912, it vanished into the dark, crushing depths of the Atlantic Ocean. For decades, no one knew its precise resting place. People could only imagine its ghostly form beneath the waves, and many believed the wreck would never be found, having descended to a depth of 500 feet 800 meters, far beyond the reach of most explorers at the time. It was not until 1985, 73 long years later, that the Titanic was finally discovered. Dr. Robert Ballard, a pioneering deep-sea explorer, and his team employed advanced robotic submarines to meticulously explore the ocean floor. What they uncovered was awe-inspiring and heartbreaking. The bow, the front of the ship, was remarkably intact, while the stern, the back, was twisted and broken. Stark evidence of the ship splitting in two before its final plunge. Scattered around the wreck were shoes, dishes, luggage, and other personal belongings of the passengers. A haunting, poignant reminder of the lives abruptly lost. Since its discovery, scientists have meticulously studied the wreck, observing its slow, inexorable decay. Bacteria and saltwater are gradually corroding the metal. According to experts, the Titanic could completely disintegrate by 2030, leaving behind nothing but memories. Despite its inevitable fate, the world's fascination with the Titanic endures. It is not merely about the ship itself, but what it profoundly represents. The audacious ambition to construct something extraordinary, the tragic consequences of overconfidence, and the deeply human stories of survival, immense loss, and unwavering courage. In 2012, to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Titanic sinking, Australian billionaire Clive Palmer announced an ambitious plan to construct a modern replica, aptly named Titanic Tabulai. This new vessel would faithfully replicate the original's luxurious design, including its grand staircases, elegant dining rooms, and vintage cabins. Crucially, however, it would incorporate modern safety features, such as an abundance of lifeboats and advanced navigation systems, to ensure that history would never repeat itself. The ship was intended to sail the very same route as the original Titanic, from Southampton to New York. While the project generated immense excitement, it has faced numerous delays and challenges. To this day, Titanic Survivor has not been completed, but the very idea demonstrates how profoundly the Titanic's legacy resonates in people's hearts. Of the 224 people on board, only 705 survived, predominantly women and children. Over 1,000 men tragically perished, many gallantly sacrificing their places on lifeboats for others. The Titanic imparted invaluable lessons to the world. One, overconfidence can be perilous. The belief that the Titanic was unsinkable led to fatal errors, such as the insufficient number of lifeboats and the dismissal of critical ice warnings. 2. Respect nature. The iceberg served as a stark, unforgiving reminder that nature is an immensely powerful and unpredictable force. Even the most advanced human creations can be humbled by its raw power. Third, plan for the worst. The Titanic disaster forever transformed safety regulations. Ships are now legally required to carry enough lifeboats for every person on board. Radios must be manned 24/7, and safety drills are mandatory. The Titanic story is a rich tapestry woven with glamour, tragedy, and enduring mystery. People are drawn to it because it feels like a profound cautionary tale about human ambition and arrogance. The ship's wreck at the bottom of the ocean is like a time capsule, preserving a frozen moment in history. But more than anything, it is the individual stories of the people on board. Their bravery, their sacrifices, and their shared humanity that keep the Titanic alive in our hearts. The Titanic's narrative is not solely about loss, it is about learning and profound growth. Here is what we can all take away: never give up. The survivors of the Titanic faced unimaginable trauma, yet many went on to rebuild their lives. Their resilience serves as an inspiration to us all. Always be prepared. Life is inherently unpredictable, whether facing a shipwreck or a personal challenge. Being prepared can make all the difference. Learn from mistakes. The Titanic's tragedy led to new safety standards that have saved countless lives. Mistakes are not an end, they are invaluable opportunities to grow and improve. And so, the mystery of the Titanic is not merely the story of a ship. It is an enduring story of humanity. It is a powerful reminder of what we can achieve and what we must diligently strive to avoid. If this story has inspired you, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Learning through such narratives not only enhances your English, but also enriches your heart with wisdom and motivation. Thank you for watching. Let us continue learning and growing together.